Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. And if you don't celebrate the holidays, I hope you are having a magnificent December. For those of you who exchange gifts, have you got your shopping done yet? For me, I haven't even started yet. Um, Typical ADHD, wait till the last minute. My saying is, why do what you can do today when you can put it off tomorrow? With that being said, I know we have a week and a half left, so I'm hoping and praying that I get it done before then. If not, oh well. I'm sure people will understand. Today, I want to talk about my top 5 favorite urban legends from South Texas. Now, some of these are stories I heard long ago. Some of these are stories I hear over and over, and some of them I've just discovered. So let's go ahead and dive in. Number 5, the curse of the Catfish Man. Now, the Catfish Man was said to be a local fisher along the Rio Grande River. And it was said that he was very good at what he did, and people admired him for the amount of fish he could catch. However, there were those that feared him because he was very ill tempered and extremely greedy. The legend has it that the Catfish Man made a deal with either a local witch or a folk healer. It is said that in the agreement, he would get an insane amount of fish, but he had to donate whatever was left over to the less fortunate. Being this man was so greedy, he kept everything for himself and hoarded it. This made either the witch or the folk healer very angry with him. And so they cursed him. With this curse, he became half man, half catfish. They said that his legs became fins, his skin became slimy and gray, and his eyes bloodshot red. Other versions claim that the catfish man was a smuggler and he was using the river to escape. So the spirits of the river cursed him because of his evil doings. Others say that he was a fisherman, but it was the spirits of the river itself that cursed him and punished him for overfishing and lowering the population. And then there are other versions which say he is a guardian that protects the river. Whichever story you believe, it is said that the Catfish Man is known to lurk in the river. I'm sorry. It is said that the Catfish Man is said to lurk in the waters of the Rio Grande River. Fishermen and locals claim to have seen eerie shadows roaming through the waters. They tend to take on the appearance of what looks like a man, but also a fish. Campers on the river report hearing guttural moans coming from the river and splashing sounds when there's nothing there at night. Some say they see his glowing eyes up above the water. Some even claim that they have been either chased by this creature or pulled into the water by it. Now, stories of cursed monsters and river creatures have been around for centuries. A lot of times, these are attributed to the unknown of the waters. This story could also be a cautionary tale of protecting the ecosystem because of all the pollution and overfishing that goes on in the area. It reminds us to respect nature and to not take it for granted. Now, many ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts have come and investigated the Rio Grande River and have caught these gurgling, moaning sounds or seen these things in the waters. It is often seen on ghost tours and in folklore compilations. And it is a tale that blends fear and mystery with the supernatural, as well as including those environment themes. Number 4, El Muerto. Now, the legend of El Muerto goes back to the 1800s, back when Texas was, how do you say, more rugged. It's rooted in the violent history of that time. This was when there was a lot of ranch wars going on. There was cattle thefts and lawlessness. Side note, did you know that in Texas, it's against the law to carry wire cutters? I know this is a tangent, but it goes back to these times when they would use the wire cutters to cut the wires to steal the cattle. So yeah, just a little side note. Sorry, off topic. Let's get back on track. Now, there was the story of Vidal. Vidal was a cattle thief, and he was known to terrorize the borderlands between Mexico and Texas. He would steal the livestock and was always evasive. It's said that around 1850, Vidal made the mistake of happening upon the ranch of a lawman named Creed Taylor. Creed Taylor and his accomplice, Bigfoot Wallace, not to be confused with Bigfoot the cryptid, but that's just what they called him. Now, these two, they were able to catch up with Vidal. And unfortunately, when they caught up with him, they unalived him, removing his head from his body. At that time, they took the body and strapped it to his horse, resting his head on the saddle. Then they let the horse go. According to the legend, Vidal's body and his horse wandered the area for weeks. And this brought terror among anyone who saw it. And over time, it was like this sighting became more of a supernatural sighting. People started to claim that they saw red eyes glowing where his head should have been. Others reported eerie noises, such as phantom hoofbeats, or other sounds that would represent spirit activity. El Muerto is mostly seen in the desolate plains of South Texas. Some of these areas would include like Laredo, San Diego, Texas, not California, San Diego, Texas, or Uvalde, or as I grew up calling it, Uvalde. These are areas where it was known that cattle bandit activity took place. Also, there's been, sightings along highways and rural roads. Some people claim to see this phantom figure off in the distance. And as they try to approach it, it vanishes. Now, getting into a more rural area, such as ranches and farmlands, they claim that they've seen a headless figure riding a horse through the moonlight across their lands. This is usually during a full moon, and it sometimes does coincide with what we call cattle mutilations or other animal deaths that are mysterious. One story involves a group of cowboys that saw his actual body riding the horse near San Antonio. In terror, they fled the scene. And when they did capture the horse finally, his body was still attached to it, even though it had been rotting. Some of the symbolism and themes that are included with this tale is that of justice and revenge. Um, as El Muerte does serve as a ghostly reminder of the brutal past that we had here in Texas, um, and just how that justice could be brutal back in the Old West. This is where lawmen and vigilantes blurred the lines. He seeks out lawmen and even thieves and punishes them for their wrongdoings. He's also been described as a harbinger of doom, appearing before deaths. And in some areas, they also use El Muerte kind of like as an explanation for weird things happening. This could be like strange weather that comes along, um, mysterious lights in the sky, or even vanishing cattle. So it's like, your cattle goes missing. Oh my goodness, El Muerte came and took my cow. Or, a weird storm is coming through and you're like, oh, that's El Muerto coming, be careful. And even though El Muerto is less known than other Headless Horseman stories that are out there, he has appeared in local literature, art, and even storytelling. And some even compare him to Washington Irving's Sleepy Hollow, but with a Texas twist. Number 3, The Legend of the Devil at the Dance Hall. Now, I was told this story happened in San Benito, Texas. This is a small town located again in the Rio Grande Valley, and it is rich in culture and history. During the mid-20th century, what I heard in the 70s, there was a dance hall kind of on the outskirts of town. One night, this extremely handsome man appeared, and everybody was taken aback by him. They thought he was just the most amazing thing they'd ever seen. He captured the eye of a woman and asked her to dance. She was entranced by the look in his eyes. Just something about his eyes were just a little off, but still intriguing. So she accepted the dance. When they went to dance, or when he put his arms around her, she felt the chill, but simply disregarded it. And they danced all night until around midnight. At that time, he stepped on her dress about 3 times. When she looked down, she noticed instead of having regular human feet, he had chicken legs. At that moment, he vanished into thin air, leaving the smell of sulfur. Now, there are some that claim that their parents or their grandparents or their friends or their sisters or brothers were there that night to witness this. I've never met anybody who's seen it firsthand, but they all claim to know somebody who saw this. And interesting enough, this story is not just is not just alone to San Benito. I've heard this story happen in different towns throughout Texas, including San Antonio, and all around the same time. So this makes me wonder if this is a regional phenomenon, something that was going on at the time. Maybe the devil was making his rounds. Who knows? But each story has its unique details. Some say he had the chicken legs. Some say that he had hooves. Some say that a massive storm occurred at the same time, accompanying him on this night. But this story is a cautionary tale of, you know, not not being taken by vanity. Um, it it teaches modesty and to stay true to your faith. It does reflect deep ties with Catholicism, and the belief in good versus evil. Now, the Rio Grande Valley and South Texas is very much, dipped, and there's a lot of Hispanic folklore and culture in South Texas and primarily in the Rio Grande Valley, as we're right on the border of Mexico. And so a lot of that bleeds into this area. And in Latin American cultures, the devil is a common figure. He is seen in many stories, and this is, again, to instill moral values. And dance and music, while celebrated, can sometimes be viewed as a suspicious gateway to temptation and sin. I know I heard this all the time growing up in the church. Don't dance, don't drink, it leads to sin. So yeah, that's where a lot of this idea and this story comes from, in a sense. It is part of a larger category of stories where the devil comes to tempt or punish sinners. Um, they tend to reflect on the modern influences like nightlife and the erosion of more traditional values. And this isn't speaking from my belief, just to let you know, full disclosure, this is just in the research that I found why people say this happens. Again, this is not my beliefs. Please don't come at me. If you like to dance, if you like to have fun and drink, you do you, okay? We're good. But stories like this are often discussed in paranormal circles, among ghost hunters and folklorists alike. And, these people kind of analyze the roots in their retelling. That's where this research comes from, not from me. Many locals do believe that this event truly happened. Like I said, I've only heard hearsay about it. I've never met anyone who's actually experienced it themselves, that was actually there that night that it happened. However, these stories, have they have inspired films and TV, as well as books. And these stories appear in other parts of the world as well, not just here in South Texas. So yeah, if you've heard any of these stories in your area, let me know below. Number 2, La Lechuza. Now, this is a story that I've heard a few times here in South Texas, and I haven't mentioned anywhere else, but it's one of my favorites. That's why I wanted to include it on this list. Now, lechuza is the Spanish word for barn owl. But in folklore, it's a witch who can turn into an owl. And this legend has roots in Mesoamerican beliefs, where owls are often seen as a harbinger of death or misfortune. And this is, kind of combined with the colonial area of witches, and the legend, it was evolved. Again, witches in South American culture are very different from like the Wiccan witches that you see. There are some good ones. Those are mostly known as curanderas, which is the folk healers, as I mentioned before in the catfish story. Other times, they're not so good. And La Lechuza is one of those not so good witches. It's often described as being an owl with a massive 7-foot wingspan or more. It has a woman's face, and sometimes its eyes are glowing. Some accounts say that she has black feathers on her back. Others say white. This helps to symbolize the duality between beauty and terror. It is said that La Lechuza can mimic human voices. These could be that of a crying baby or a woman in distress. And she does these mimics to lure people outside. She is capable of flying silently and does attack victims with her talons. It is also said that she can cause storms or even give you bad luck. There have been stories of her hypnotizing people with just a single glance. Again, in Mexico, she is sometimes tied to black magic and evil witchcraft. And people blame her for bad harvests they may have, the death of their livestock, and even unexplained illnesses. I have talked to people that say that they've seen her. One person told me that they saw her sitting outside their window. She was extremely tall and, of course, long wingspan, and they were tapping. Sorry, it was tapping at their window, asking to be let in. Some of the ways that you can recognize her, as I said, is by hearing the voices. You might also hear the tapping at your window. There's also tales of hearing whistling at night, and cries that don't quite seem human. And then again, the appearance of a large owl suddenly perched near your home, like the person that told me that they saw her sitting outside their window. They say if you hear the whistle, never whistle back, as this is seen as an invitation to let her in. If you curse loudly at her or throw things, this tends to drive her away. So yeah, to me that sounds kind of like a regular owl. You scare them and they take off. But yeah, this one's supposed to be really big. There was a story of a man who claimed to have shot a large owl in his yard. When he went to find the corpse of the owl, he came across an old woman laying there with a gunshot. It is said that those who try to capture or kill her are either turn up missing or have a unexplained death. There has been in many books, movies, and TV shows stories of La Lechuza. And the paranormal investigators and ghost hunters of South Texas do tend to go and investigate different sightings across the area, looking for evidence and truth to her story. Now, there are ways that you can protect yourself from La Lechuza. One is to keep salt in your doors and windows. Another is to pray or recite a protective prayer when you hear her cries. Other things to do is to avoid calling out to her. This challenges her directly. If you do hear the whistling or the crying sounds at night, it's best to stay inside and don't go out to investigate. Number 1, La Llorona. Yes, this is the correct pronunciation. I hear so many people tell the story and they call her La Llorona, but it is definitely not the way you say it. The correct way is La Llorona. And I'm not very good at rolling my R's. There should be a little bit more of a roll there. Let me try that again. La Llorona. Llorona. Never mind. Either way, the story actually dates back to pre-Columbian times, and it's often linked with Aztec mythology. Some connect La Llorona to the goddess of, this one's going to be kind of hard for me to pronounce, but it looks like see see how ko- koto. See how koto? Hopefully I said that right. Um, I pride myself in being able to pronounce some Spanish very well, others not so much, so don't come after me. But this was a deity associated with motherhood and war. She would wail in warning of catastrophic events. The legend did evolve through colonial times and it blended with Catholic beliefs. The classic story that everybody knows about La Llorona is that she was a beautiful woman named Maria. Now, I've heard some people say that she is associated or also known as Bloody Mary, but they are two complete separate entities. Please do not put the two together. They're not the same. Their stories are completely different. Bloody Mary's in the mirrors. La Llorona is near the waters. Yes, two completely different entities. Maria fell in love with a wealthy man, and they had children together. After a while, the man strayed and ended up leaving her for another woman. In a fit of despair, Maria drowned her children in the river. When she realized the horror of her action, she was consumed by despair. And then she ended up taking her own life. She was rejected from heaven, so that her spirit now roams the earth searching for those lost children. One of the things that people say they hear is her calling out, Ay, mis niños, which means in English, oh, my children. Now, in some stories, she's seen as a vengeful spirit who targets unfaithful men or, disobedient children. There's others that depict her as a cautionary tale. This is about respecting family and the dangers of emotional impulses. Now, the legend is tied, as I mentioned before, to water, and a lot of times she's seen near creeks, riverbanks, lakes, different bodies of water. One of those being, again, the Rio Grande River. Locals claim that they hear her cries near the water, and parents have warned their children not to wander near the lakes or the river because they might be taken by La Llorona. There are many in South Texas and throughout Texas who claim to hear her wails. Again, this is mostly near rivers and creeks and lakes. Some claim that they see a woman in white wandering near these waterways, and she disappears if they try to approach her. There have been accounts of fishermen seeing her, or women having or parents having dreams of this woman before disasters happen. And other stories tell of children that have been lured to the water by a mysterious voice. La Llorona embodies the pain and loss, regret and despair. She is a reminder of the balance between love and tragedy. The movie The Curse of La Llorona in 2019 brought this story to wider audiences across the country. However, its accuracy to the folklore is debated. She also came out in the show Supernatural, as well as other paranormal shows. There have been other movies made that depict her as well. There have also been songs and poems written about her haunting cries. You can also find her story in books about Latino folklore. Those are my top 5 favorite urban legends of South Texas. Let me know in the comments if there's any I forgot or if you disagree with my picks. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Happy holidays to everyone and sweet dreams. Bye.